Hello, fellow calligraphers, calligraphy enthusiasts, or in general, maybe future calligraphers, who knows? Today I would like to talk slightly about scripts. I mean different scripts and interesting scripts. For me personally, could be different for you, of course, but for me, if it's not Cyrillic and not Latin, then it's interesting because it could be written from different sides, it could have different shapes, you could work with different sizes, different lines, circles, like what have you. And everybody starts with the scripts in a different way. And I would like to share a piece of my story of how it started for me and how it went from that point on. The first script I learned, since I'm from Czech Republic, it was Latin. So I learned that, it was okay, why not? It's the script that you learn, you don't really think about it being a child. And later on, in the 6th grade in primary school, I found Hebrew. And Hebrew, I mean, already this being written from right to left, I mean, for you it would be the other way around, of course. The shapes were different, and suddenly I had to think completely differently about the script. The vowels are not there, very specific, and it was already interesting. And I mean, I don't really recall every single detail per se, but I think it was a couple of days with the great teacher, Ahab Heidler, who taught me the basics. The script, how it's in cursive, what are all the thoughts behind it, the stories, and this was the first touch with Hebrew as a script. I learned a little bit about the language as well, but my focus was really on the script. And being a 6th grader at that time, I didn't really think about it that much. I just did what I loved. And that being an interesting script, it then went on. It was the era when The Lord of the Rings came out. And suddenly, Mr. Tolkien went and developed different scripts based on the scripts I slightly knew. I saw them somewhere, the different runes of the dwarves, of course, and then with the elves. And the systems for the Tengvar was in a way similar to Hebrew, at least as I saw it, because then the vowels work very similarly at certain stages. So this was interesting, and I had to learn it all. It was love at first sight. I just saw it all, different new scripts. Let's learn them. And that was the era of Lord of the Rings. And then it was the secondary school, and that's the point where it all actually skyrocketed incredibly. And this is the reason why I'm holding this awfully old book, which is called New Cipher Book de Fuchsig, because Fuchsig was the longer version of my pseudonym that I'm currently using. And this is a book that I've been filling with different scripts for the past 20 years, maybe, something like this. I will show some pictures later on, of course, but just going through some of them. Thai alphabet was interesting. Of course, it was interesting because in primary school we had a friend of mine from Thailand. She came to Czech Republic and she gave me a scribble book of Thai scripts where I could learn and I could start. That was the one. And I just had to try all the characters, learn them, and to see how it works. The cuneiform of Ugarit, different like ancient Hungarian runes and everything, and the history scripts. All of them. And this is the book. The most wonderful one. I'm very happy that I haven't lost it during the years, and I still treasure it very much for myself. And then later on, after I finished secondary school, I went for university. I went to study languages. I mean, general linguistics was the official name. That was in Brno, the second largest city in Czech Republic. And that's where the passion actually went completely bonkers. I mean, absolutely. Because this was the passion I was always seeking. This was something I loved doing. Because in primary school, when you go into syntax and you think about the sentences, how they function, in a way, it was boring, uninteresting. But for some reason, when I did it at university, suddenly this became something I was obsessing with. The syntax, of course, the very basics, understanding how the language functions, like by definition, and of course, scripts. In general linguistics, we had mandatory to source languages, as they were called. For me, it was Hebrew because I already had the basics, and I went for something else, well, it was an interesting script. That was Sanskrit. So learning these two during the few years I spent there before I graduated, that was amazing. Because already a different script, much more of the language itself, actually gave me a very in-depth understanding of how the language works in combination with the script. And then when I was writing my thesis, I found a script that took my heart and took my whole life, just put it together, and suddenly Fuchs Karachovič was blurted out. And that was Mongolian. There was a lecture about languages of China, surrounding countries, and Mongolia is one of them. I mean, that's the official name of the subject that we did. But Mongolian scripts. And I saw a book. On the cover, there was an interesting script. Again, all of them are interesting in a way. And I just asked the teacher, like, what's the script? Like, it's classic Mongolian. And at that point, I had no idea this script even existed. So I said, like, yeah, thanks. What do I say to, like, how do I Google classic Mongolian scripts? I mean, I did, but it gave me so many versions, I had no idea how to work with it. But anyway, it took me a few months to learn the script because I just had to, like physically, I was urged to learn the script. And then I started realizing of how the script works, how it's beautiful in the verticality, and how to work with it in general, how it's combined with the Mongolian language. And the first years, when, I already graduated, I wrote a thesis comparing the Khalkh Mongols, which is the current Mongolian, and the Mongol-Bichik, which is the script. I compared these two and how they were influenced, what was their development and so on. And through the years that went on from that point, I kept learning of how it works. But being a student, I really didn't have the budget to go to Mongolia, so I just kept in touch with Mongolians from Czech Republic, and I started getting feedback. But still at that point, I had no idea of like what to do with it. You're a guy who knows many scripts that may be interesting, but that's it. Like, what do you do with it for your life? Around that time, let's say, because for Mongolian calligraphy, for me, it's been 13 years this year. And at that point, it was like 7 years ago. I was thinking, like, what do I do? Somewhere I found, like, okay, you could sell it, you could create artworks, you could maybe later on when you become more proficient, more confident in what you do and how you do it, and when you get sufficient feedback that it's actually still respectful for the culture itself, then maybe I could teach it. That's where we are. Because right now, I may sell artworks, the feedback is great. I have performed in Mongolia, and even Tamir Sanmanbadra Purev, whom I consider my mentor, my friend. He is from Mongolia, and he established a calligraphy center in Kharkhorin, a former capital city in Mongolia, and I was allowed to have an exhibition there, a permanent artistic residence, let's call it that. This is the feedback that gave me the confidence that I actually have accomplished something already. That's what I work with, and that's what I still enjoy doing so much, because it's fun for me. Apparently it's fun even for people, for my clients who get my works, who buy my works. If it's an interior design somewhere, then it just complements wherever it is, and the feedback I'm getting is wonderful, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. If you would have any questions regarding that, just post them in the comments, or just drop me a message, email, or just let's grab coffee. I'm very enthusiastic talking about this and learning about other people's passions, of course. So do let me know, and hopefully I'll see you in another video talking about calligraphy, Mongolia, or any such related things. Cheers!